Tonight we present
The Disappearance of Tara Calico. Tara Calico was a 19-year-old college student living in Belen, New Mexico. She was an active, independent young woman who loved cycling and often enjoyed long rides through the scenic rural areas surrounding her town. On September 20th, 1988, Tara set out for one of her routine bicycle rides, but that day, something inexplicable happened. She never returned. Her mother, Patty, initially thought nothing of it. Tara was an experienced cyclist and was always punctual. However, by late afternoon, when Tara hadn't returned home, Patty began to feel a sense of unease. As the hours passed, the worry grew into panic. Tara's mother and stepfather, John, launched a frantic search, retracing the route she usually took. They found nothing. There were no witnesses, no signs of a struggle, and no explanation for Tara's disappearance. The situation quickly escalated, and local authorities were alerted. A search was organized, and soon, the entire community was involved in looking for Tara. They searched for days, covering vast areas of open land, forests, and fields. Yet, Tara was nowhere to be found. It was as if she had vanished into thin air. Weeks turned into months, and as time passed, the hope of finding Tara alive began to dwindle. But the case took an even more chilling turn when a year later, in 1989, a photograph surfaced that would haunt her family forever. Belen is a small town located about 30 miles south of Albuquerque, New Mexico. Known for its close-knit community, it was a place where people knew each other by name, and the streets were often quiet. In the late 1980s, it was a town where crime was relatively rare, and the thought of a young woman simply vanishing was almost unthinkable. However, Belen was not immune to the social changes occurring across America during the 1980s. The United States was grappling with the rise of media coverage around violent crimes and missing persons. The decade witnessed a surge in reports of missing children and young adults, and many of these cases remained unsolved for years, fueling public fear and fascination with crime. In the case of Tara Calico, the community was rocked by her sudden disappearance. Friends, family, and neighbors couldn't fathom why such a thing would happen in their quiet town. As local law enforcement struggled to find leads, the case attracted the attention of national media. This made it not only a local mystery, but also one that captured the interest of people across the country as they wondered what had happened to Tara. The investigation into Tara's disappearance began immediately, but there were few clues. Detectives and local authorities initially speculated that she may have been abducted, but there was no evidence to support this. Her bicycle, helmet, and personal belongings were found near the last known point of her route, suggesting that she had been taken by someone, or perhaps she had been involved in a traffic incident. But there was no sign of struggle, no fingerprints, and no indication of where she had gone. As time passed, more theories emerged. Some investigators speculated that Tara might have simply left voluntarily, but her family dismissed this idea. Tara was planning to return to college in a few days, and there was no indication she had any intention of disappearing. The more the investigation unfolded, the more perplexing it became. No one knew where Tara had gone or why she had vanished without a trace. One of the early breakthroughs came when a witness claimed to have seen a strange vehicle near the area where Tara had been riding her bike. The witness reported seeing a light-colored truck or van parked along the side of the road, but no one could identify the vehicle. This potential lead was quickly followed up, but it led nowhere. The frustration grew as months went by with no new evidence. Tara's parents, Patty and John, could not understand why law enforcement had not made any significant progress. The case was beginning to feel like a cold mystery, with the search for answers appearing more hopeless by the day. But just as the public's interest began to fade, an unexpected development brought the case back into the spotlight. In July of 1989, almost a year after Tara's disappearance, a photograph surfaced that left everyone stunned. A young woman was shown, bound and gagged, lying on a bed. The woman in the photo appeared to be in distress, her hands tied behind her back and her face covered with a gag. A handwritten note in the corner of the photograph read, "Is this Tara?" The photo was found in a parking lot in Florida, far from New Mexico. The person who discovered the photograph turned it over to the police, and it was immediately examined by authorities. The image caused an immediate stir. The woman in the photo looked strikingly similar to Tara, and the circumstances were eerily reminiscent of her disappearance. Tara's family was devastated when they saw the photo. Was this a clue that their daughter was still alive, or was it a cruel hoax? Investigators, along with forensic experts, analyzed the photograph carefully, but they could not definitively confirm whether the young woman in the image was Tara. The similarities were undeniable, but there were also several inconsistencies. The woman in the photo had a different hairstyle, and some details about the setting in the photograph didn't align with what Tara's family knew about her life. Yet, the chilling possibility that Tara could still be alive kept the investigation alive. The appearance of the photograph led to a wave of renewed interest in the case. The media began to speculate that Tara might have been abducted and held captive somewhere. Some theories suggested that she had been trafficked, while others speculated about a potential serial abductor operating in the area. But no matter how many theories were proposed, the truth remained elusive. As the investigation into the photograph continued, the mystery surrounding Tara's disappearance only deepened. While the photo could have been a crucial lead, it also raised more questions than answers. Was it Tara? If so, where was she? And if it wasn't her, who was the woman in the photo, and why was this image sent to the police? The case seemed to be stuck in an endless cycle of dead ends. The photo itself became a symbol of the haunting unknown. Investigators could not rule out the possibility that Tara had been abducted, but there were no further breakthroughs in the case. As the year 1989 came to a close, the investigation had no conclusive evidence to solve the case. The haunting question lingered. What had happened to Tara Calico? The photograph was the most tangible clue, but it only served to complicate matters further. The community in Belen, and the rest of the country, was left wondering if the truth would ever be revealed. The disappearance of Tara Calico and the haunting photograph had captured the attention of the nation. For over a year, her family and authorities were left with more questions than answers. However, as time wore on, Tara's case began to fade into the background, a mystery with no resolution. The photograph found in Florida had offered a brief glimmer of hope, but it had failed to lead to any concrete answers. In the months that followed, new developments would begin to emerge. In 1990, the police had re-examined the photo and attempted to track its origins. Although it was clear that the photo came from Florida, they were unable to trace the individuals who had either created or distributed it. The trail quickly grew cold. The photo itself did not provide any significant evidence to suggest that Tara was alive or dead. As the years passed, the case of Tara Calico seemed to slip further into the realm of the unsolved, though the mystery would never truly be forgotten. Despite the lack of progress, local and federal law enforcement agencies continued to investigate Tara's disappearance. The FBI became involved, treating the case as a potential kidnapping and considering the possibility that Tara had been taken by a serial abductor, perhaps even connected to other unsolved disappearances. The case was periodically reopened, with investigators reviewing all the details and attempting to uncover new leads. But the investigation itself was fraught with challenges. The lack of substantial physical evidence, the absence of witnesses, and the vast amount of potential leads that led nowhere made the case incredibly difficult to resolve. Despite all efforts, law enforcement was unable to definitively uncover what happened to Tara. Theories surrounding her disappearance continued to proliferate, but they varied widely. Some people believed she had been abducted by a stranger, perhaps someone from outside the area. Others speculated that it was someone she knew, possibly even someone in her close-knit community. In the absence of hard evidence, these theories could not be proven. In 2008, almost 20 years after Tara's disappearance, the case took an unexpected and tragic turn. On the morning of June 3, 2008, the skeletal remains of a young woman were found in a rural area in the same general vicinity where Tara had last been seen. The remains were discovered in a secluded area along the side of a road in the desert-like landscape of New Mexico. Authorities quickly alerted Tara's family, and they were asked to provide DNA samples to help identify the remains. For Tara's mother, Patty, the news was devastating. The hope that her daughter might still be alive was shattered. Yet, the possibility that this was Tara remained uncertain, and the family awaited confirmation. In the months that followed, authorities conducted extensive DNA testing to compare the remains with Tara's family's genetic profile. Finally, in 2009, the New Mexico State Police confirmed that the remains were indeed Tara Calico. The family, though devastated, finally had answers. The mystery of her disappearance was no longer just a question of where she was, but how and why her life had ended. The confirmation that the remains were Tara's brought some closure to the case. It meant that, after over 2 decades, the family knew what had happened to her, but the answers raised even more chilling questions. How had she died? Where had she been for those 20 years? And who was responsible for her tragic fate? The circumstances of Tara's death remain a mystery. Despite extensive investigations, the exact cause of her death has never been determined. There were no obvious signs of trauma to the remains, leaving authorities with the possibility that she had died from natural causes, though this did not entirely rule out foul play. While the case was officially closed, it left an unsettling feeling in the minds of the public. Despite the many years that passed, there was no clear resolution as to whether Tara had been murdered or if she had died of natural causes. Some speculated that the photo from Florida, which had reappeared a year after Tara's disappearance, might have been a clue about her abduction and eventual death, but no one could definitively confirm this theory. Tara's case not only impacted her family, but also the broader community. Her mother, Patty, fought tirelessly for answers, never giving up hope that she would one day find out what had happened to her daughter. Her emotional journey was one of heartbreak, perseverance, and eventual acceptance. For years, Patty's life revolved around the search for Tara, and she dedicated herself to spreading awareness of her daughter's disappearance. The case of Tara Calico also had a lasting impact on the way missing persons cases were handled. It highlighted the difficulties of solving such cases, especially when there is a lack of physical evidence or witnesses. It also brought attention to the psychological toll that such a case takes on families, and how the lack of resolution can keep the trauma alive for decades. In the wider cultural context, Tara's story sparked a growing interest in missing persons cases across the United States, and it became a focal point for discussions about crime, safety, and the vulnerabilities of young people in small communities. The mystery of Tara Calico's disappearance would continue to haunt those who followed her case, as many questions remained unanswered. As for Tara's family, while they had received confirmation of her death, they would never know the full story of what happened to their daughter. Tara's case was a tragic reminder of the vulnerability that exists in even the most seemingly peaceful corners of America. And though justice may never be fully served in her case, her story stands as a poignant example of the enduring pain of a family left with too many questions and too few answers. The story of Tara Calico is one of enduring mystery and heartache. Despite the years of investigation, the numerous theories, and the unexpected twists, the case of Tara's disappearance remains unsolved in many ways. The questions of who took Tara, what happened to her in the years she was missing, and why her life ended so tragically are questions that may never be fully answered. As time goes on, Tara's family and the public must live with the ambiguity of her fate. Yet, the case of Tara Calico remains an important part of America's history of missing persons cases, a reminder of the unresolved mysteries that continue to linger in the shadows. What happened to Tara Calico, and who was responsible for her disappearance? The answers may never come, but her story will live on, as an eerie testament to the haunting mysteries that still unfold across the country.
The questions don't end here, nor does our pursuit. If this story unveiled something you never expected to discover, then you're in the right place. Remember to subscribe, turn on notifications, and share this tale with others who, like you, are drawn to the unknown. Here, mystery always finds its voice, until we meet again, where the inexplicable will once again serve as our starting point.